Welcome to the Wildflowers in the Sky YouTube channel. My name is Marissa Bing, and I am an astrologer, a teacher, and a forever student of topics that include manifestation, cosmology, philosophy, depth psychology, and all things spiritual. I am brimming with passion and focus on helping you uncover the depths of astrology, and I am determined to help you see your life through a lens that is both empowering and purposeful. If you are looking to expand your knowledge of astrology or develop new perspectives through which you can just view your life through, or just simply be provided with thought-provoking material, then look no further. This YouTube channel has one goal, and that goal is to encourage positive and powerful shifts. Shifts in self-understanding, shifts in understanding others, and shifts in understanding this world. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get started. Hello everyone. I'm back. It's me. I'm here. Back to trying to fall head first into these videos. It's been so incredibly long since I've given any sort of update. So for anyone who follows along, I do apologize. So it's funny, I had this whole vision of how I was going to come into this, and honestly, since I would say October, I had mapped out these storyboards and these all these different things that I wanted to do, and I will do at some point, but I hadn't realized that I was enabling the OCD perfectionism to block my progress with this project, which I have allowed a lot of blockers to kind of interfere, and I want to try and change that. So it's currently the 31st. It's 6 p.m. on the 31st on the PST, and I'm here recording this so I can post it, because obviously this episode is specific from January 1st to January 8th, and then I have to record another one after this for the moon in Taurus. So I'm trying to show up, and this is my effort, and so as such, I'm recording on Zoom. I'm not recording on my camera or anything like that, and just doing the bare minimum to at least show up, which is the most significant part, right? So anyway, one of the notes I want to make right away is I was playing on my website. I was doing something, and basically I inadvertently deleted a lot of my subscribers. And so if you had subscribed to my website, you might need to resubscribe if you'd like to receive my newsletters, updates on these videos, the monthly astrology workbooks and whatnot. Please feel free to resubscribe via my website, wildflowersinthesky.com. And if you have subscribed in the past, again, you're going to possibly need to resubscribe, and I apologize for that. Or if you just, for shits and giggles, want to subscribe, you can do that too. Anyway, also important to note that this episode theoretically will be time-stamped. I don't know that it'll be time-stamped right away, but it will be time-stamped so that you can skip through and find whatever pieces of content you're interested in. Additionally, the script of this episode, because obviously I read off my notes. I'm a big note taker. I prefer to follow the flow that I write, because I talk and I go on these tangents, and even right now I'm going on this tangent. I just do that. So to kind of help keep my organization, I always have everything pre-written out, and it's kind of the way that I ensure that what I'm saying is cohesive and to the point, and I'm covering the particular bits of content that I want to cover. So if you are someone who's visual, you can find the script, you can find the PowerPoint deck, everything on my blog, which again is attached to my website, wildflowersinthesky.com. So aside from that, we can get started. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and now we can move forward. So for those who don't know, my name is Marissa Bing, and I'm an astrologer, a healer, psychic intuitive, singer, music producer, and my main profession really is just being a constant student of everything else. And then also additionally, I'm also a in the 3D world. I'm a corporate trainer for the trucking industry. I always like to have my hands in a lot of things, which keeps me very, very busy and incidentally does interfere a lot with like the projects that I like to work on, because I'm so eager to just like learn everything. And one of the bits of awareness I've come into is recognizing that my ego is using learning as a means to, it's a, what is it called? It's imposter syndrome, right? Feeling like you don't know enough. And then on top of that, though, it's also, I want to learn, I want to know, I want everything like that. And so because of that, I get so like, oh, I need to stay in integrity with my studies, and then I drop out of integrity with my projects, such as this. So anyway, I usually have my hands in like a lot of stuff. Mentors of mine that I've worked with, that I've learned from include, but are certainly not limited to, Catherine Zankina, Lindsay Mack, Tony Howard, Stephen Forrest, Richard Harness, Jessica Reed, Shamina Taylor, James Wedmore, Julieta Bodo, and more recently, Sahara Rose, Ajit Nawaka, and Dr. Nita Bhushan. I'm currently a student at Dharma Coaching Institute, and my studies, amongst many things, just in general, this isn't necessarily specific to Dharma Coaching Institute, but kind of a cohesive stamp across everything that I've been learning. But a lot of my the studies that I like to venture into are astrology, consciousness, philosophy, anthropology, depth psychology, manifestation, tarot, human design, self-hypnosis, and so much more. And so I'm just constantly seeking growth and understanding. In general, I'm a very, very creative person. I'm very optimistic. I'm very eccentric. I have a lot of energy, and to me, I personally find my energy pretty chaotic, but I have come to understand that a lot of people find it quite grounding. So, I feel though that when I'm in these videos, or when I talk in these like episodes, because this is for podcast and for video, so I apologize if I kind of switch between saying podcast, video. I'm trying to specifically say episode. Again, this is such like a raw form of like anything that I'm going to do, because I don't plan on really editing anything from this at all. So what you're seeing or what you're hearing, that's what you're getting, without me like actually going in and doing my OCD thing that I usually do. So anyway, if I say podcast, if I say video, I mean to say episode, because this is for both at the end of the day. So anyway, my point is that I feel like when I'm on these, like I just seem kind of erratic, maybe, just like really, I don't know, like intense or all over the place. And so if what I'm trying to say though is that like if that's like a lot for you, then I might be a lot for you in that regard. I'm not really like one of those people who like a lot of my mentors, they're just very calm, they're very chill, they're very, they really kind of take on that like spiritualistic characteristic, like the, not characteristic, but like there's kind of this like image people usually have for like more spiritual things, and I just don't really fit that. And my personality certainly doesn't fit it. Anyway, the point is though, is that, if you're looking for someone super, super, super calm and just very like, I don't know the correct word for it, but probably not the correct person for you. However, if you like dynamism, then that's me. Anyway, I am determined to figure out how to navigate this business that I've been trying to slowly build. And when I say this business, I mean my personal business. Sometimes I prefer to teach astrology at the end of the day versus like go through horoscopes or things like that. But I know people like that. So anyway, I'm trying to determine like what it is I want this podcast or these episodes to like really focus on, like what kind of content I want to work with. And I'm open to hearing feedback on like desired content. I recently actually was contacted by a stranger who happened upon my Leo conspiracy video, and they just expressed so much like appreciation and gratitude for having created it. And it was really, really incredible to hear, because I feel like nobody hears these things or listens. And then I also found myself feeling like really upset that I hadn't continued the series, the conspiracy series. So I certainly do plan on bringing that back, especially because I do love like bringing like education to the table. I want to educate on this topic. I want to educate on all the topics that I know, because the major archetype that I have within me is like the teacher archetype. And so if I can like help bust a lot of these like stereotypes out there, these like very shallow, superficial understandings that a lot of people unfortunately are running with, I would love to do that. So that's kind of like my goal, is to like really share educational material that empowers, but also like expands your mind, right? Because I pay a lot of money for everything that I know, and I have been learning and am learning and learned, and I'm grateful that I've had the ability, the privilege to have done that and to continue doing that. But I know a lot of people don't, or they don't have the time or whatever, and so I want to help kind of bridge that gap for people. So anyway, currently, if you're curious, like what videos do we have available for the conspiracy series, we specifically just have Virgo and Leo. So I do plan on like bringing the series back. It is a lot of work for me to do. I do a lot of research, and I refer back to like my hundreds of books that I have in my shelf. And so because of that, I probably will begin the series in April for the Aries sign. But it could happen sooner depending. And that said, like if there's any particular pieces of content wanted covering, then please reach out. I do plan on doing, bits of information on the planets themselves, or the elements or the modalities. And I plan on hosting like master classes and things like that to kind of help further understand, because you really cannot understand the signs if you don't understand the elements and the modalities and the polarities and whatnot. So one of the perks of my content in comparison to a lot of others is that I provide resources to back what I'm saying and where I'm coming from. My weekly videos don't include it so much, but my individual videos, such as like on the moons, whatever videos like are specific to particular energies, those will specifically have like quotations and like a lot of references and resources. And sometimes I'll forget, but like I usually try to cite my references, like the pieces of resources I've referred to. So within my notes, whether it's like below the YouTube video or within the podcast episode information, I'll try to include that on top of the timestamps, so that if anybody, because I encourage everybody to go out and buy these books and like learn from the greats, you don't have to learn just from me. You can like learn from like the actual greats, and you can see what I'm spitting out for you. Or you can just listen to me and I'll give you the shortened version. So anyway, like I said earlier, though, as much as like providing this information and these like quotes it's like a perk, it's also like a blocker, because I spend a lot of time creating the content, researching, and just like trying to like create the image of what I feel like in my mind or see in my mind to kind of that I want to share. But that's also why it's so easy to fall off, because I just want it to be like thorough. You know what I mean? I probably really should charge for a lot of the information I like to give to people, but I just feel like education is so invaluable that it should always be shared with people. Anyway, I am determined to really try and show up. I know I've said that multiple times, but I really, really am. And even if that means like putting out content where I feel like I don't look the best or sound the best or not set up enough, such as this current moment here. So my last point, my intention of having created my podcast, YouTube, blog, etc. in general is because there is such an influx of people who aren't educated and they're speaking on the topic of astrology. Astrology is entirely educational, and while intuition is a great tool to have in hand, in truth, astrology is not a form of divinity. It's quite scientific, referring to quantum physics, of course, when I say scientific. It's incredibly complex, and it embraces required studies in psychology, mythology, philosophy, cosmology, history, and so much more. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there are just doing like quick little Google searches like on a sign or a planet, and has just assumed this like 5-sentence paragraph is like the extent, when really it's typically quite superficial. It's based entirely on the extremities of a stereotype, and then people will create content around this like small, very, very dry piece of paragraph or content. Now, if somebody's telling you that they're giving you like an intuitive astrology reading, then they're at least like telling you the truth, that they're not really going so much on educational, but they're going more on like, kind of like more of like a psychical impression, which to each their own. Do what you want to do. I'm psychic as well, and when I give readings to people, I like to clarify, and I think that's only the fair thing to do, is to clarify, like, here's what I'm seeing in your chart based on my education of astrology. But here's also like my intuitive, what I'm getting right now intuitively, kind of thing, and just relaying, like, giving that disclaimer, because the last thing you want is for somebody to be like, oh, she gave me this, she told me this, and that means that that's actually true to the archetype, when it's not true. It's just like an intuitive message I received, kind of thing. So there is that too, like, it is totally, you can use them hand in hand, but I do feel like there's a lot of people out there who think that they can just look at a chart and just, what they're giving you is a psychic reading. They're not giving you an astrology reading, if that makes sense. So that's something that I like to share. So, that said, I urge you to take like everything with a grain of salt, like even the stuff I share, because I'm not looking at your chart. I'm looking at the general energies. I'm looking at what I'm seeing on like the ephemeris, or like an actual, drawing of the chart for today, but that doesn't show me what's going on with your chart. So I can't tell what's happening for you or how it will affect you. I can just tell you generally what it might look like as a subliminal, general kind of grasp of it. Certainly trust your own intuition and refer to an astrologer you trust, who you know is credible and who has put in the time to study. I'm personally forever a student and will continue to develop my own understandings and interpretations. What I understood a year ago is so far from what I understand now. Growth is good, and as such, I aspire to help break apart some of the common misconceptions, misunderstandings, and just shallow stereotypes that limit human potential. And unfortunately, those stereotypes teach people the wrong thing. They can hurt you, they can damage you, because you might feel like you're wrong being the way that you are, because it says that you should be this way if you're a Pisces, kind of thing. So I really just aspire to teach people the educational standpoint of it all, and just empower people like with these like understandings. I think it's time to break a lot of social constructs, including that around astrology. Anyway, so that's enough. Let's look at the planets. So just like a quick preview of our planets from the start of the week to the end of the week. The sun is currently in Capricorn, and from the 1st till the 8th, it actually moves about 7 degrees forward. The moon moves between 3 different signs. It starts with Taurus, then goes to Leo. It starts in Taurus, then goes to Gemini, to Cancer, and then to Leo. Mercury is currently retrograde, and so from the 1st to the 8th, it actually moves backwards in Capricorn, about 8 degrees in Capricorn. Venus enters Aquarius on the 2nd and goes about 6 degrees deep within the sign by the 8th day of January. Mars, also retrograde, traverses backwards about 2 degrees in Gemini. Jupiter, which is in Aries, Saturn, which is in Aquarius, and Neptune in Pisces move forward only 1 degree in their respective signs. And Uranus in Taurus and Pluto in Capricorn remain at the same degree by the 8th day of January. Looking at the moon, we start the week with the moon firmly planted in Taurus. On the 2nd, it moves into Gemini, where it will stay until it moves into Cancer on the 5th. And then it pops into Leo on the 7th and remains there. And don't forget that we do have the full moon in Cancer. I believe it's on the 6th. Additionally, as I always do, I will never take this part away from my episodes, but for those who are new, I preface all generalized readings with a few friendly reminders, because it's important to have these disclaimers. The first one is, as I said, this is a general look at the astrological energies. So I'm not looking at your chart. I don't know where your Mars is, and I don't know if you have a Mars in an Earth sign, and therefore you're going to be more affected by this energy versus if you didn't, right? I can't see your chart, so I don't know. So the information I give, just take it with a grain of salt. Accuracy can only come with consultation on your personal chart. 2, the best way to use this information is to compare it, like compare where all the planets are and what's going on with your own chart. And see how that might interact. If obviously, if you don't know enough about astrology, you might not be able to do this part. But, listen to what I'm saying and just kind of like review where or how this energy might show up for you. And then the third one is if any episode includes like any sign-based scopes, always refer to your rising sign for a more increased likelihood of accuracy. Generalized scopes are entirely written based on rising signs, and as such, you should always refer to your rising sign. And this gets a little complicated because, like, if your rising sign is like 23 degrees, well, and you're using particular houses, you're using a quadrant house system, then the generalized horoscope might actually go to the next sign. So if you're a Gemini 22 degrees rising sign, the information will actually probably push you closer to a Cancer rising sign for these generalized purposes, if that makes sense. That probably doesn't make any sense. Just ignore that if that did not make any sense. The point is refer to your rising sign. Okay, so before I talk about themes, I actually want to say one thing. Usually my process is to have Monday through Sunday information, but because the first landed on a Sunday, I just felt like I might as well include it. So we are going from the 1st to the 8th, when usually we'd be from the 2nd to the 8th. And so I just kind of wanted to make that note clear. I won't normally do like 8 days worth of information, usually just 7. It's usually Monday through Sunday. So the themes that I have kind of come up with based on the information provided in this week. The first one is to surrender to change. We are called to change when it's time to grow. And change is often very much feared, but change benefits us and it gives our soul what it needs. We will know. The signs will always come up when it's time something needs to change. Because if it needs to change, it'll just keep breaking because it's not supposed to last, right? So surrender to change if you find yourself in like a shifting moment. Just surrender to it. And surrender doesn't mean just give up or just give in. It means to recognize. I'm trying to remember who, I think it was Dr. Nita Bouchon, who said this, where surrendering means recognizing that you never had control in the first place. I thought that was like really powerful because I struggled with change, and I don't struggle with change because I hate change, but because I like to control things. That's why I struggle with change. The second theme is, in order to heal, we must release. We must always give ourselves the space we need to safely and gently release whatever needs to be released. And then the last one, self-awareness so to actualize. Awareness can not only help us identify our actions and reactions, but it can also help us identify our subconscious and uncovered wounds or undiscovered wounds. With that said, let's get a little bit more into the meat. So, January 1st. We start the day with Moon in Taurus at 7 degrees. The Moon rules Cancer, and Cancer is a water sign. Though the planets are not categorized in the elements, the Moon, were it to be assigned an element, perfectly aligns with water. The Moon is this ever-shifting planet, and remember, in astrology, the Moon and Sun are both considered to be planets, so obviously they're not planets, right? But in astrology, they are considered to be planets for anyone who doesn't know. So it's this ever-shifting planet, and so each day, the Moon shifts just ever so slightly, moving in and out of these like different phases. Astrologically, and in very short words, the Moon is associated with how we process our emotions. It's what nourishes us. It's how we nourish others. It's our reactions and what we drop into when we seek to feel safe. Like a boat on the water, gently bobbing with the waves, the Moon flows along in the sky with the current of space and gravity. That's kind of how I see it, as it's like floating. It's floating in space, following the current, that gravity, the pull that the Earth has on the Moon. So with so much movement and desire for emotional security, it makes sense that the Moon would find itself exalted in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is an Earth sign. It's much to do with security and stability. And as I've said before, the Taurus Earth is the kind of soil that the Moon can feel safe enough to rest within. So this ever-shifting planet, this like watery planet that craves emotional security, finds itself in Taurus, which is this very durable, stable, secure, loving kind of sign. And Taurus is a sign that's very calm. It has a very calming energy. It's consistent, it's solid, and in general, meaning without consideration of the other planets touching this moon. So in general, what I'm saying right now really fast, in general, I'm going to talk about the moon in Taurus in general, because the way that moon in Taurus is now, like what it will be, is it's going to be skewed according to what planets are touching it. But before we talk about the planets touching it, just in general, with moon in Taurus, we are likely to experience a subtle subliminal energy that draws us towards our senses and physical beings. We may find that a sense of nourishment extends from such things as a close hug from a partner, sharing a meal, or even just enjoying a meal and allowing the flavors to coat your taste buds, thoroughly just enjoying the experience of taste, or wearing clothing that is comfortable and soft and full of like gentle textures that appeal to our sense of touch, listening to beautiful music, or looking at talented art, which is appealing to our sense of sight and hearing, or lighting a candle or spraying oils or melting wax that coats the air with a pleasant aroma that grounds us deeper in our bodies, appealing to our sense of smell. Amplifying our appeal towards stability and balance is the Capricorn sun. So this Taurus moon is being touched by the Capricorn sun. This happens around 5 a.m. PST. And with this, there is a stronger likelihood of alignment between what we feel and what we want. What we feel and what we want. Sometimes what we feel is different from what we want. And this energy is kind of increasing the mending of the two. Again, a very subtle general energy, but we might feel a little bit more in alignment with what we feel and what we want. And with that said, Uranus also pops its head into the mix around 2 p.m. PST. And when Uranus joins the crowd, the energy from the Taurian moon takes a small turn. Uranus and Taurus aren't really the best of buds, and you're going to hear me say this every time we have a Taurus moon. Taurus and Uranus reflect almost entirely different concepts. So Uranus's choice to tag along with the group could create more movement than is usually experienced with the Taurian moon. Taurus loves stability and endurance. Uranus loves change and stirring the dust. That said, Uranus's appearance could influence the importance of freedom. And considering Taurus's appreciation of security, freedom could actually sound quite contradictory. But instead, I actually think it could blend quite nicely together. If we take the time to consider how we even define the idea of security, we can then determine whether that security is fear-based or freedom-based. Am I making a decision out of fear of being insecure? Or am I making a decision because it's in alignment with me and as such will bring me more freedom? It is possible that the day holds many very minor, likely subtle contradictions to itself. And when there's a contradiction, there's a belief that must be busted. In a lecture by Sahara Rose that I viewed recently, she brought to attention how many contradictory thoughts and beliefs are out there that we actually hold. And an example she gave was similar to the belief that money is an unlimiting resource that gives effortlessly, right? We hear that a lot, like especially in the spiritual communities around manifestation, commonly told money is this unlimiting resource, it's an energy, it just gives effortlessly, it's just an energy. Well, we also have that belief of money comes with hard work. And I personally certainly have both beliefs because of the way that I grew up and also what I understand to be true today. Clearly, I have not necessarily fully healed from the previously taught beliefs. And so coming into awareness of like the small contradictions that we might have within us, definitely allow Uranus and the moon in Taurus to bring up those contradictions that need to be brought up. So you can truly have a hold on what beliefs are making up your reality. Then at 10:30 p.m. PST, we have Mercury and Neptune coming together. They're not touching the moon, they're just coming together. So they're having their own encounter and they kind of bring about a stronger imaginative and artistic disposition. This combo is really great because it can actually enhance our intuitive understandings and can really help us further connect within, while the moon in Taurus is asking us to be present without, meaning like on a physical level. Consider, while the Taurus moon is having us connect with our bodies and our senses, our physical world, Uranus is highlighting those necessary changes so that we can live more abundantly within ourselves. And then Mercury and Neptune are influencing a connection with our higher selves. So there is a lot. There's a lot of energy being offered, much more energy that is available, which is great. And remember my age-old adage that I'll always say, we always have a choice of either reacting to the energies as they present themselves or taking ownership of our own world and making decisions of what we will do with the available energy. So I'll say that again, we can either encounter the energy and let it kind of push us and pull us like we're dummies and it's the ventriloquist, or we can recognize the energy is present and we can decide. We can take ownership of our own world. We can make the decision how we will let this energy affect us, how we will let it affect our day. If the way it works out in your chart has you hopelessly connected to this Taurian moon, then definitely tap into the Taurus energy and give your body some love, pamper, indulge yourself. If you feel the warmth of the Capricorn sun shining on you, embrace it. Should Uranus make an appearance for you, allow it. Just see what it brings your attention towards. And even further, if Mercury and Neptune hit you up in time, let yourself fall into this gentle, dreamy world of you and connect with yourself even further. January 2nd, moon is still in Taurus, but it will leave at 6:45. So this day actually has a lot of things happening, a lot of activity, a lot of energy. But we do begin with the moon in Taurus. So I forgot to say this earlier, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to primarily just talk about all the moon stuff in the chronological order. And then I'll touch on anything to do with the planets. So even if the planets happen in between events with the moon, I'm going to save all planetary stuff at the end. And it'll also be in chronological order too, just as like an FYI. So early in the morning, 4:30 a.m. PST, the moon is encountering Mercury, which is in Capricorn. It's also encountering Saturn in Aquarius and Neptune in Pisces. Now, not all at the same, they're not all like necessarily touching each other. It's just the moon is kind of like the middleman between them all. With this energy, similar to the previous day, we might feel the urge to focus internally. In fact, we might notice that within, there is a new level of depth available for us to explore, to analyze, to connect with, and manage. Should we feel the desire to focus internally, it's important we do not emotionally withdraw from our external experiences, nor be too tight-fisted about how we might feel about something. We don't want to enable for experiences to shape our identity, nor do we want to be so internally focused that we lack presentness. What we are aiming for here is empathy, understanding, and healing, and also being present. On the flip side, it is equally possible that when we encounter this energy, we find the pull towards emotional connectivity to be a bit too much, resulting in a desire to repress emotions at all costs and kind of avoid that internal world. And I can get this, like, I'm a very passionate person, very fiery, very empathetic, but many times emotions are just kind of like so messy. They're so gross for me. So I can get it. But if this happens, I encourage the practice of awareness, becoming aware of this tendency, becoming aware of, and this goes for both sides of the coin, right? Like if we're finding ourselves so involved internally that we're ignoring the external world, we're not being present because we're just so wrapped up in here. Become aware of this and don't shut out the external world just because you're really trying to focus internally. Like we have to balance the two. And then on the vice versa, if you are finding yourself really overwhelmed with emotions and you're just don't suppress the emotion, right? Just try to become aware of it. Try to find that nice balance. Give yourself permission to release whatever you need to release. Give yourself permission to understand. Give yourself permission to let go and to not allow whatever is going on inside of you to be bottled up, just waiting to burst. Perhaps that means, heading towards a corner and just allowing the wave of emotion to overcome so it can be released. Or maybe it means journaling. Whatever release looks like for you, trust that it's coming as a result of a need, and give yourself the space you may need to release it. A bit in the afternoon at 2 p.m., the moon bumps into Pluto, which is in Capricorn, and this is just adding a little bit more depth to our day. So if we weren't already sticking our feet in the water of internal focus, with Pluto, we might find ourselves straight up diving into the depths of our own being. Tag teaming with Mercury's urge for us to think and speak about what we feel and its enjoyment around thoughtfulness in general, Pluto will have us analyzing and exploring our unconscious motives. Those motives that every person has unconscious motives. There are some things that we do that we don't know why we're doing them. They're just driving us forward. A lot of the time, those unconscious motives come from wounds, or come from triggers, or come from scars, or even, beliefs we were told. So we're just driven by them. We're not even aware of them. And then we keep finding ourselves in these particular cycles. Each person has this, and it's our job to identify them and to try to pluck them out and become conscious of what we're doing and conscious of the thoughts that are driving us forward. So Pluto is helping us analyze this. Mercury's already got us thinking internally, but then also Pluto's coming through, and it's asking us to analyze this section, to analyze what's driving us forward. What is the drive behind it? And Pluto's going to take us deep if we allow energy to do so. Sorry, if we allow Pluto to do so, not energy to do so. In the afternoon around 5 p.m., shortly before the moon glides into Gemini, the Taurian moon connects with Venus, the planet that rules the sign of Taurus. This connection brings a bit of pleasantness to help sweeten the energies of the day after the day's energy of encouraging us to go inwards and connect with ourselves emotionally and, getting deep and experiencing the tug of war of emotional release and emotional repression. We naturally may feel a bit tender. So Venus is coming in like a godsend because Venus will bring gentleness. We might even feel pulled to tap in with our yin side, feeling enticed to do those sweet things that bring us joy and happiness. At 6:45, the moon enters the bubbly air sign Gemini, and as such, our nourishment rises its focus above the body and into the mind. Enjoyment of dissemination, exchanging thoughts, debates, curiosity, intellect, those things can be experienced. All things mental and thoughtful take precedence. And I think this is a very beneficial energy, especially with consideration that it comes through on such an internal focused kind of day. Taurus had us present with the body, and then all these multitude of planets involved help us dive further within emotionally. So there was a lot of grounded and emotional connection, and then also discovery. And honestly, that kind of energy can be a lot for people. It can sometimes be heavy, depending on the familiarity with traversing that terrain. So the moon ending its day with a pop into Gemini is kind of like a breath of fresh air because it gives us a break that we might have been craving. It takes us out of the body, out of this emotional connection with our body, and more into the mental headspace where rationality and intellect reign. Of course, we're still talking about the moon, which is still all to do with our emotional sphere, but the approach to it all is a bit more detached, more analytical, and more rational. And the last of the moon's interaction is with the brilliant planet Jupiter at 9 p.m. PST. Jupiter in Aries helps end the day on a positive note, high-spirited note that carries much enthusiasm. With Jupiter, all things are bigger and greater and more. The key word I always use with Jupiter is more. So while Jupiter definitely brings a silver lining to all things, it's also possible that with Jupiter will come a stronger urge to analyze our emotional realms more, to rationally consider our emotions more, just even having more emotions. Entwined with the Gemini moon, Jupiter in Aries will overall give us an added pep to our step and help to end the day neatly. Aside from all things related to the moon, we did have some excitement from the planet Venus, which has freshly found itself arriving in Aquarius. Venus will be in Aquarius until January 26th, giving us 24 days of Aquarian Venusian vibes. With this energy, it is possible, should Venus in Aquarius be interacting with your chart, or you're around others whose charts it is affecting and interacting with, it's possible for us to feel some of the subliminal effects that this ingress brings about, including a deeper pull and love of freedom, of independence, of improvement. Many often forget that Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is the traditional ruler before the discovery of Uranus. And so plenty of people forget that Aquarius is not aspiring to completely shake things up. It is not Uranus, right? It is more Saturnian than it is Uranian. I do see the similarities, obviously. I'm not saying that they're not, and I'm not saying that Uranus is not a good ruler of Aquarius, but I think that you can't look at Aquarius and Uranus and just say that is exactly who Aquarius is. Aquarius comes from Saturn. It comes from tradition. It comes from history. It comes from the crystallizational kind of world, right? So archetypally, it does prefer durability. It's a fixed sign, which I think a lot of people also forget. It's not so versatile, right? It's a fixed sign. I mean, I feel like that says a lot right there. So it enjoys history because it looks at history through the lens of improvement. I always identify the Aquarian sign as the reformer, the improver. Anyway, ranting aside, we're talking about Venus, the planet of physical pleasure, receptivity, of peace, which can be interpreted as love. Venus will identify what we value, and whatever it is we value, we're attracted to. We have an appeal for. It's what catches our eye. So Venus in Aquarius, with Venus in Aquarius, we may subtly find an attraction towards independence, space, fairness, inventiveness, reformation, equality, and more. Aquarius is an air sign, and as such, I'm not a huge fan of irrational concepts such as like emotions and feelings. Obviously, Aquarius has feelings, right? But it's just all air signs are, they're not so prone to like sit within emotions. That's why they have like the characteristic of being a little bit more detached in comparison to the other signs. Depth is not really an air sign concept. And with that, detachment can be concluded, as I said. So superficiality can be assumed, but I feel like giving air signs the word superficial is not correct, and that's a whole nother conversation. Anyways, but the way people might view this as could seem to be superficial, even if that's not the intention. And then also with air signs, various changes can be preferred due to eccentricity and erraticness. So, as I said from the start, this is a jam-packed day with a lot of energy available and offered. I'm going to advise that we take this energy as it comes, that we're gentle with ourselves, that we listen to what we need, that we keep our head up if things do start to feel heavy. It's easy to want to escape when we're required to do something, such as look deeply at ourselves. So try and challenge yourself to step up to the self-reflective mirror. See what really needs to be said, what needs to be called out, but more importantly, what needs to be loved, released, and forgiven. We are all just souls trying to figure it out. January 3rd, we start the day with Moon in Gemini. So the Moon is resting easy in Gemini for today. But it does have a couple of run-ins, particularly with Mars and Chiron. It first encounters Mars around 12 p.m., bringing some heat to the day. This relationship with Mars can influence an amplified level of courage and impulse. We might find ourselves feeling more passion-fueled, protective, direct, assertive. This energy can be used constructively, however. If we're not careful, it can also take a turn. So we have, with all things, and I really want to, I know I'm saying this, but I really want to emphasize this, that like, with all energies, in all things can be taken, things can be done constructively, things can also be hampering, right? It really depends on like how we decide to handle the energy. So here's what I'll say with Mars. Mars is passion fueled. It's also a restless kind of energy, right? So if we use it constructively, we're going to be passion fueled. If we're using it in more in a bit inhibiting kind of way, then we might become more restless. Assertiveness can turn into aggression. Protectiveness can turn into courageousness. Protectiveness and courageousness can turn into reactiveness. Practicing awareness can ensure we navigate the energy wisely and optimally. Knowing when we need to take a step back so we can get a hold of ourselves or take whatever necessary measures so that we can release pent-up emotions is ideal and key. Around 6 p.m., the moon encounters Chiron, bringing the possibility of empowerment, which probably sounds like an odd word for me to use with speaking of Chiron, but the reason that I say that is because it is a possibility. How we interact with this Martian energy from Mars, the energy from Mars, can help us identify whether we are meeting Chiron with a confident mindset or from a healing mindset. So no matter what, though, there is this ability to come out on top. Mars will either have us highlighting our reactions with the understanding of what we are in need of healing of, or it's going to highlight how much we've grown. I mean, I'm sure we can all relate when I say this. I've been working so hard on my reactiveness because I'm very, very fiery. A lot of fire in my chart. Mars ruled. I've got Mars moon, Mars sun, Mars Mercury, fire moon, fire sun, fire Mercury, fire Jupiter. I've got a lot of fire within me. And so I have a strong, growing up I was very reactive. I'm very, very impulsive, very reactive, and I would just explode sometimes. It's something I've been really working on. And then recently I've been finding myself in situations, not finding myself, but I'll be in a situation where I'll become aware that I'm actually just surrendering to the moment versus exploding, right? Because my reactiveness was because I was trying to control whatever that person was thinking or the way that the situation should have concluded or something, right? And so it's such a cool moment, though, to be in the moment and then realize, like, coming full awareness of, wow, usually this is what I'd be doing right now and I'm not doing it. And what a cool thing. So that's why I say Mars can also help highlight how much we've grown. And Chiron's going to piggyback on this accordingly. It's going to ask us to take the time to work with our wounds and heal, or it's going to empower us to help others who are struggling with something similar that we've already healed. So this is like a very small but powerful dose of energy available today, and the fact that it's a Tuesday just amplifies this when we consider that Mars rules Tuesdays. So I encourage us that we use the Gemini moon and its contacts with Mars and Chiron in a constructive and effective way possible. January 4th, moon is still in Gemini. It starts the day with 14 degrees Gemini, and just like on the 3rd, the moon remains in Gemini for the entirety of January 4th. Though, unlike the day prior, it encounters different planets, giving us the shakeup we need, because no day should ever be exactly the same. Because these planets don't cross paths with the moon until later in the day, there's the possibility of us actually feeling an undiluted form of the Gemini moon energy. Usually, for example, what was it, the second we had, or it was the first, we had Uranus coming in to shake up the Taurian moon energy. But if we didn't have that, if we had that like really, 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 really late in the day, then that means that the entire day would be mostly Taurian energy kind of vibe. So planets, when they come in, they really do shake up and change how we can experience the moon in a sign's energy. So that's what I mean when I say undiluted, because a lot of the interactions that the moon has with the planets is around 4 p.m. PST, which means from 12 a.m. until 3:59 p.m. or maybe around like 3:30ish. That's really when it's going to be very strong Gemini moon energy. Now, of course, we have to remember we're in Capricorn season. We've got other planets doing other things with other planets and whatnot. So it's not 100% undiluted, but I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Really, really, really want to pause this and just re-record so many parts of these, but I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to edit this out. We're just going to deal with it and do it. Hopefully this is making sense and you're understanding. Okay, so if you find yourself feeling nourished by discussions, debates, mental stimulation, and the exchanging of ideas, please cap in and take advantage of this. This energy is fantastic for mental exercise, enabling the ability to come up with new ideas and build-outs. Gemini is such a fantastic sign, especially if you're just trying to like gather a bunch of information, especially if you're just trying to do like a quick research project, not trying to go too deep, just trying to grab all your citations. If you're trying to come up with new ideas, if you're trying to find like versatile approaches, if you're trying to understand different people's perspectives, things like that. So really cap in on it if you can. Around 4 p.m., the moon encounters Saturn in Aquarius, Neptune in Pisces, and Neptune in Pisces. Obviously, again, not that Saturn and Neptune are touching each other. They don't really have a major aspect with each other, but they are touching Gemini individually. So Saturn is a bit of our gatekeeper, providing us with the stability and strength, and giving us a bit of a backbone, capable of handling pressure and responsibility, and even taking on the sense of responsibility. And this is actually favorable because Neptune is really seducing us with the temptation of numbing and escaping, which usually that looks like a vice of some sort. And when I say vice, I don't just mean like drugs or alcohol. Like a vice could be playing video games. A vice could be working out. Oh, it's kind of a bad one, but when it's something that's not good anymore, because you're actually doing it just to avoid, just to escape, just to like really. So we could feel enticed to do that. And the truth is, though, is that with Neptune mixed with the Gemini moon, there is the possibility of us getting really lost in our thoughts, and allowing ourselves to kind of get swept away within the world of our thoughts. And as a result, feeling very unfulfilled and easy to take advantage of, because now we're just kind of like, we're so zoned out. We're not really doing anything. We're just going in these like circles. So we're easy to play, right? Like we're easier to sway because we're kind of just like, it's like when your mom, she's just kind of like zoned out, and it's like, oh, can I have this cookie? And she's like, what? And it's like, can I have this cookie? And she's like, I don't care. I don't know. Right. So it's like, obviously you shouldn't have that cookie. I don't know. This is a horrible example, but if that makes sense. So, with this energy, just see like where your interests and curiosity takes you, and allow the good ideas and positive thoughts to come through. Sorry, I was looking at a wrong part of my notes. Yeah, no, but certainly do see where I think we can take advantage of Neptune, because I think that we can pay attention to whatever it is that we're wanting to escape from. We can find the situation that we're wanting to escape from. We can see when Neptune comes in, and we can identify why it's coming in. If we have awareness around that, we can reject the Neptunian pull to kind of escape, and we can tap into Saturnian concepts, practicality, groundedness, stability, methodology, and yank ourselves out of Neptune's grip and actually be constructive with this information that we just discovered about ourselves. On the planet side of things, we have Mercury and Jupiter coming into close contact. So we have Mercury in, on the video, I forgot to change that. It's supposed to say Mercury. Yeah, sorry, it's supposed to say Mercury. So we have Mercury and Jupiter coming into close contact very early in the morning. And so this is great because Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. And we're just kind of having like an amplified mercurial kind of energy, which is great, right? Gemini already has a lot of mercurial characteristics, and then we have Mercury coming in, and it's actually touching point with Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter is very much like more. So joining on Gemini's bandwagon, Mercury and Jupiter kind of amplify our focus on like our intellect, amplify our focus like on our minds and our mental. So there might be like a subtle tone of interest in learning and knowledge and philosophy and trying to tie meanings together, seeking higher forms of, because Jupiter and Mercury are actually quite similar planets. I believe it's said that like Jupiter is the higher octave of Mercury, because Mercury is very interested in like education, and Jupiter is really interested in like higher learning and like purpose kind of understanding. So if we find ourselves like in the mix of this energy, definitely take advantage of it. See where our interests and our curiosity take us, and this is where I went into that note. See where our interest and curiosity take us, and allow the good ideas and positive thoughts to overflow. So all in all, a pretty great day with a lot of potential coated with a tinge of dreaminess and a lot of thoughtfulness and a lot of intellect and higher thought, but then also a lot of temptation to just kind of zone out, right? So if these planets are interacting with your chart, I certainly advise that we take advantage of the energy and use it in a productive way, such as tackling an idea that you've been blocked on, or considering what sort of topics you'd like to learn more about. Just take another glance at a symbol or a situation and see if your perspective has changed, or if you're touched with like a little bit of enlightenment, or you might see it in a way that you've never seen it before. January 5th, we have Moon in Cancer, or in Gemini, but by 6:15 a.m., it does move into Cancer. So again, we have it beginning with Gemini, and before it goes into Cancer, it does make contact with Pluto in Capricorn, just gently bumping heads. The planets come together to introduce a bit of a power struggle within us. So we have an inconjunct here, and it's starting to be considered a major aspect, but I think it's still typically considered a minor aspect. And what that means is that inconjuncts are kind of felt on a more like subliminal level, like more subliminal than typical. Something that we're not fully aware of, that we have to become aware of. And so that's why I say this is a bit of a power struggle within us. Now, this energy is going to be a lot more subtle than usual. It's going to be felt more easily, but misunderstood. We're probably going to chalk it up for something else. I just encourage us all to practice like self-awareness of our intentions, of our motivations, of our reactions. I think we should just take like notes of the areas where we are feeling powerless, and then the areas where we're feeling powerful, and what the external circumstances are that are occurring that then lead us to feeling particular ways. Highlighting the internal circumstances and experiences as well. So if we're finding ourselves feeling powerful here, finding ourselves feeling powerless there, take note of that, but then also consider like what's going on within you. Like, is ever there like an internal situation, or like whatever's happening, like an internal circumstance, maybe there's a thought that comes to you, so like you're not actually dealing with like an external experience, you're actually having this like thought, and that thought leads you to finding yourself feeling powerless and powerful, and just like taking notes and becoming aware of this, so that you can, if you're feeling powerless, why are you feeling powerless, and like dig into that. And if you're feeling powerful, why are you feeling powerful? And when you're feeling powerless or powerful, are they for good or bad reasons, right? Like if I'm feeling powerful, is it because I just like smack talked somebody? Like, did that make me feel powerful, right? Like just kind of like understanding. Again, it goes back to like understanding our unconscious motives and drive. So again, this energy is like very subtle. It does take point really, really early, but it's something that might carry on throughout the day in like more minimal ways. At 6:15, the moon freshly dips into the sign of Cancer, which it rules, providing us with a deeper sense of sensitivity, spirituality, and empathy. Like the moon, we might find ourselves ever shifting emotionally, and a preference for support and security may be felt. We might really, really crave some sort of support or security. Ideally, we'll want to hone in on our emotional experience. Moon in Cancer gives us the opportunity to connect a bit more deeply, and we can take advantage of this by connecting with ourselves, nurturing our emotions, and also just keeping our emotions in check. Just because the moon in Cancer influences a shifting sort of energy does not give us or anybody permission to be reactive and use our emotions as an excuse for disrespectful behavior. If emotions and feelings are getting stronger, then we must respect where we are and provide ourselves with the proper space we need to release so that we can respect other people who are around us. That said, if we cannot find the space in the current moment, then we can at least be aware of our own needs. We can rein it in temporarily, and then once we have the space, we can safely release. Constructively, we can use this energy to dig deeper into our intuition, to tap further into love, and to allow ourselves to be positively overwhelmed by the love and support those in our lives extend our way, including the love and support we extend to ourselves. Around 10 a.m., the moon encounters Jupiter. This relationship formed between the moon and Jupiter is one that encourages action, change, and inertia. Jupiter is coming through, highlighting our emotional exaggerative behavior, emphasizing those areas where we tend to overestimate ourselves. And Jupiter's calling us out. for where we're lacking drive, discipline, and equilibrium. In truth, the Cancer moon is supportive of this aspect in that it will enable us to drop deeper into our emotions and feelings. And the temptation of being reactive as a result is certainly available. Jupiter is mega poking the bear, but it's because it knows that with enough pokes, action will occur, making way for the eventual result, whether it's change or redirection or cleansing or whatever it may be. So if Jupiter is exaggerating particular behaviors to the point it becomes highlighted for you, it's because something needs to be changed. Whether it means working on reactiveness, whether it means looking at the current circumstances that led to the situation in which you felt reactive towards and seeing, if that circumstance is working for you. And if it's not, maybe you do need to change something. Like, how did you find yourself in that circumstance? Do you keep finding yourself in that circumstance? Or maybe it means looking at your world and the consistent themes that keep coming up, creating the undesired reactions and emotions you're feeling, and seeing what changes are necessary. The fact is, pain is indicative of something not working and requiring change. For example, if this is a really silly example, but if sitting on a needle hurts, then I obviously should not be sitting on a needle. Undesired emotions are indicative of necessary changes that must be made. If I keep getting sad about this, then it probably isn't something beneficial for me to continue. Undesired patterns are indicative of internal changes. I keep finding myself craving love, but then feeling unloved. I probably have a struggle around self-love as a whole, etc. We can just keep giving these examples, but just keep an ear open for the hints of your higher self, telling you what changes you might be required in your life so that you are living abundantly and in alignment. On the planetary level, the Sun in Uranus is taking a go around 9 a.m. Sun in Capricorn, Uranus and Taurus, taking a go around 9 a.m. This is a beneficial energy, though, and it can help us adapt easily and effortlessly. So if Jupiter does influence an extreme or two for you, we can tap into the energy provided by Sun and Uranus, become a bit more flexible, a bit more adaptable, and potentially welcome to the changes prompted by Moon and Jupiter's dynamic. This energy will have us feeling a bit more independent, a bit more stringent on ideas of freedom, a bit attracted to the idea of change and the new. It can influence a level of eccentricity and just like surprises and just like electrifying thoughts and just like excitement. And this is great with consideration of the moon being in Cancer, which has a sort of opposite kind of energy. But when we add in Jupiter, we're going to get more of whatever that Cancer energy is. But the Sun and Uranus's energy is different enough to kind of help create a sense of like equilibrium. So if we find ourselves dipping one way, just know that you can pull yourself the other way by tapping into the other available energies. How do you tap into the energies? Well, it'll happen naturally if your chart is actually being interacted with by the planets. So how do you know if your chart is interacted with by the planets? Then you want to see if one of the planets is touching one of your planets. And I actually plan on making a video about this. So if this is like complicated or going over your head, don't worry about that. I'm going to definitely kind of create something to help people understand like how to, actually look, how to actually know if like there's something going on in their chart with regards to the current transits. So that said though, if it's not interacting with your chart, you can still tap in by conscientiously tapping in, like by making the choice of I'm going to tap in. I'm finding myself uncomfortable with a newfound awareness that I need to change such and such in my life. So therefore, I'm going to tap into the Sun-Uranus energy and consider in what ways I might actually enjoy the change. Many of my mentors always ask, especially like in the workbooks, what is the benefit of me not changing? In what ways is this thing serving me? And then asking, what would happen if I didn't change? What would be the benefits of not changing? What would I be missing out on by not changing? They're pretty powerful questions when our ego gets a little too involved and holds us back. And I definitely suggest like journaling those questions. Are actually really great. So though there isn't a whole ton occurring on this day, there's a lot of energy available per usual. So don't mind me repeating myself. This day has a lot of growth offered, a lot of self-awareness that can be achieved, a lot of self-reflection and connection that can be attained, and alignment that can result from any changes we make in the name of ourselves. I hope we all take advantage of it, should we find ourselves mixed in with the energy, or that we take advantage of it by being conscious and aware that it's available and choosing to tap into it. January 6th, we have the moon in Cancer, 8 degrees. Today, our Cancer moon takes on its full form, but before it does, it encounters a couple planets, including Chiron and Uranus. The moon encounters Chiron early in the morning around 6:30 a.m., and this begins our day with the piggyback off of the day prior. Chiron always enjoys awareness around what areas we may need healing in, as well as the importance of healing. It then encourages us to extend a hand outward to those who may need the same healing that we've recently uncovered and mastered. So it wouldn't be too far off to say that after the day's prior encouragement to practice awareness of what changes and actions we need to make and take, Chiron's appearance kind of underlines and encourages us to zero in on the particular wound points that may be deep within us and, as a result, are remanifesting over and over in hopes of us getting to do something about it. If there's a needle in my hand, every time I try to hold something, it will continue to hurt more and more. I have to confront the fact that there's a needle in my hand, and I have to pull it out, and I have to medicate it with antibiotics and clean it and bandage it, give it air, let it breathe. Subconscious and unconscious wounds are just the same. We keep feeling pain when we do this or that, or attempting to approach a particular part of our life, finance, romance, whatever. It's because we have this wound. We need to bite the bullet and take the needle out. Once we do, we can help others who find themselves with the needle in their hand. We can assure them, help them know that it's okay, that it's going to be okay, that it does hurt and it will hurt, and it's not the easiest thing, but it can be done, and it should be done, and we're better for having done it, and that they will too. So by healing ourselves, we become wiser and can benefit the world more effectively. The moon then stops and chats with Uranus around 1 p.m. The uranium energy is pretty strong considering it's aspecting the sun the day prior and is not aspecting the moon on that day. But now it's aspecting the moon today, right? So Uranus on the 5th was touching the sun. Now Uranus is touching the moon. Super cute. But this energy, as before, is beneficial and will encourage and enable a sense of flexibility. It seems like there's this constant theme too that I guess I didn't highlight before, but the need to be flexible, right? The need to surrender to flexibility, to be open to it all. I guess that's where I got the word change came from. So I suppose I did touch on it. But anyway, Uranus is going to bring an interest in all things free and loose, and especially with consideration to the high tide of emotions. It's going to help us integrate our emotional need, it's going to help us integrate our need for emotional security and stability and desire for independence and freedom. It's going to kind of push them all together. This energy will likely increase our intuition, our claircognizance, which is a sense of knowing. It's possibly going to help us stand a bit more in our power regarding what we want, what we don't want. And it won't really let anyone feel pressured to be bossed around. So that is, if we're tapping into the Uranian energy, then we're gonna probably feel we're not going to want to be strapped down by our emotions. We're not going to want to be strapped down by anybody's emotions. And so I really feel like Uranus will possibly give us a little level of detachment that we need, so that we can really embrace and, stand more in our power. Around 3:08 p.m., the moon reaches its fullness, bringing us a pleasant checkpoint to assess our progress and review what we need to shed, what is no longer in alignment, and what new directions we need to navigate so to achieve our goals. With the moon being in Cancer, we can review our progress via our intuition and emotional feelers. Do our goals still bring us happy feelings? Do our goals still align with who we are? Do the actions we need to take in order to achieve our goals bring us happiness? How do we feel about the journey entirely? How do we feel about the destination? How do we feel about our progress? What is our intuition telling us? Around 5 p.m., the moon encounters Mercury, and this can possibly bring a slight edge and subjectivity to our thoughts. We're already self-focused, so we might fall into the trap of projecting our personal thoughts onto reality and, as such, struggle to see reality for what it is. As a result, we might drop into providing empty promises or speaking superficially, and it's important that we are mindful of what we are thinking and what we are saying. Understanding that moon is in Cancer can bring a thick layer of sensitivity. Knowing this can help us become a bit more mindful, especially because it is possible for someone or ourselves to have hurt feelings due to shorter patience or lack of understanding. So since we're a little bit more sensitive, but then we're also kind of not really being aware of what we're saying or speaking, right? That can kind of be ingredients for pain, for being offensive or anything like that. So becoming self-aware of our thoughts and what we're saying is so key, especially because our thoughts manifest into reality. And so the more we're aware, the better. I feel like at this point, I don't really have to do a full summary on this day because the day's patterns, I feel like, are just so abundantly clear. But if you can't guess, the energy of this day is really focused on becoming aware of our triggers, our wounds, our pain motivators, and heal from them, accept that changes may be necessary, shed, release, and entirely redirect as we need to so that our direction forward is reflective of the path that we should be on and the path we are most in alignment with. On January 7th, we have Moon in Cancer at 20 degrees, and then by 6:41 p.m., it does move into Leo. So the day starts fresh, soaking in the waves of Cancer, but and before it reaches Leo, we do have a few stops to make. So first, it stops off by Neptune in Pisces, which occurs around 4 a.m. Neptune is starting the day off with some dreamy, intuitive, and imaginative vibes. So after the big energetic buildup of this week, Neptune is bringing on the desire for something more. We have been feeling so much already, and now we're ready for some divine connection, divine love, which is ultimately peace. We're craving peace and to be deeply touched, like on a spiritual level. And the Cancer moon is naturally all about it. So if you wake up or start your day a little tender, just be gentle with yourself and try to not fill any holes with vices in the meantime. Around 2 p.m., the moon encounters Pluto, which possibly will tempt us with the desire to one-up, or the desire to be an emotional authority, the powerful one. Almost a little judgy. In truth, we're not doing this to others because they deserve it, but because we're trying to mask what's going on with us. Again, so much emotional energy has been available all week, and then here's Pluto making it real clear via our external world where our own insecurities around our emotional authority and power and confidence lie. If you find yourself looking at others with this like entitled disposition, or quite oppositely, very submissive disposition, understand that this is potentially Pluto's energetic effects. And if it's affecting you, you have to take ownership of yourself. If you're feeling entitled and judgy, realize that the person you're judging is actually yourself. Our subconscious takes everything personally, which means that when we're talking bad about John, our subconscious believes we're actually talking bad about ourselves, and will naturally attract situations or events or occurrences that then validate these thoughts and beliefs. Conversely, if you're finding yourself feeling submissive, understand that what is being highlighted is your lack of power, lack of self-confidence, and recognition that this is an area of development that's likely needed. All in all, both experiences signify the importance of our own relationship with ourselves. Whatever is happening within us on a subconscious level is going to be highlighted. Around 6:41 p.m., the moon races into Leo and gets a little bit more vibrant. So Leo is ruled by the sun, and naturally we can assume that we may be influenced to carry a more sunny disposition. We might feel a little bit more dynamic, optimistic, huge fans of all things quality, and whether we consider the definition of quality can change, right? Like, do we consider knowledge to be quality, or figurines to be quality, or particular brands to be quality? The desire for pleasure and grandness can be a bit more exciting than usual, and likewise, the sensitivity towards criticism and exaggerative reactions may be experienced as well. Leo is actually a pretty sensitive sign for a good reason. And if you're not sure, just view my Leo conspiracy video and you can figure out why it's more of a sensitive sign. So it's only natural that there may be a level of FOMO, impulsiveness, and overestimation. With regards to the moon's stops on this day, we end with its trip to Jupiter at 11 p.m. As if to amplify Sunny's Leo archetype, Jupiter is bringing the night to a close with high spirits, enthusiasm, energy, and charm. It's quite perfect because it's as if we are approaching the end of the week with an accomplished, happy demeanor. And if we consider how wild and deep the energies offered this week have been, the moon moving into Leo and touching point with Jupiter is a pretty beautiful experience. Even with its aspect to Pluto. Obviously, we're still in process of creating the changes we need to make, and Pluto is just reminding us of that. But Leo moon and Aries Jupiter are adding a little bit of fiery passion and excitement to the mix, which is likely what we need. External of the moon's aspects on the planetary level, we have the sun and Mercury touching point together quite early in the day, around 5:30 a.m. PST. And so this energy of the sun and Mercury can also be felt underlying throughout the entire day. This is a powerful energy, and if the sun in Capricorn and Mercury in Capricorn are engaging in your chart, you're certainly going to be feeling this. This energy can influence a subjective undertone to our understanding. What we think meshes in with our understanding of who we are. It's as if whatever we think is who we are, and who we are is what we think. We could struggle with critical thinking, objectiveness, and thought, realizing that our thoughts are not entirely our truths. And honestly, I think Pluto aspecting the moon can help balance this out a bit for us, because Pluto will have us recognizing that our thoughts are fueled by our subconscious beliefs. And if we are tapped into the energy from the week, we will recognize that there are many wounds to heal. And that process is always inclusive of reframing our mind and understanding, releasing all inhibiting beliefs and formulating new ones, reframing, right? Ones we want to shape our reality, because our reality is shaped by our beliefs, and our beliefs are formed by our thoughts and understanding. So yeah, it's a pretty thickly fueled day, but one that seems to be getting us over a hill, which is always a breath of fresh air, especially with the potential weight we might have been experiencing thus far. And finally, January 8th, Sunday, January 8th, the moon is in Leo, obviously, and it's on its way to visit a few planets. The first stop is Venus, which comes into contact around 9 a.m. Venus in Aquarius is starting our day a bit on the grumpier side. There's a pull towards all things emotional security, and yet at the same time, a strong pull towards all those things that we desire, which often are not within the realm of comfort. So let me say that again. We have a pull towards emotional security. And what is emotional security? It's safeness. It's what we know. It's what feels safe and secure, right? Like whenever we think of secure, it's the world that we know. And we know this is true because the ego fears change, even if change is good for you. Why does ego fear change? Because you don't know what's going to happen as a result of the change. But you do know what's happening right here, right now, where you are and what you're familiar with. So we have that pull towards emotional security. And then we also have this pull towards things that we desire. Why are they different? Because a lot of the things that we desire, those things that excite us, they make us happy, those dreams, those passions, they're things that we don't currently have. And whatever we don't have means we have to go get it or receive it. And when we have it or receive it, then our reality is going to change. We either have to release something to then make room to receive, or we have to make a change in our daily habits or focus or work patterns or whatever. It can even be as granular as like I like to play this game on my phone, and then somebody buys it for me on the computer, and now I have to change an entire way that I do something, right? Like now I have to learn it on the computer. It's a change, and even as exciting as it can be, sometimes it's a little intimidating. Sometimes it's a little scary. Depends on obviously like how big it gets. Change brings fear a lot of the time. It doesn't have to, but it often does. And this is why even the most mundane desire is never manifested, because of the deeply tucked fear. Likely masked by procrastination, right? Like obviously I have a fear around actually really building my business. There's plenty of reasons I know why I have that fear, but I will hide behind procrastination, or I'll override the desire or something like that, right? So fear can help us avoid change. So Venus is challenging us a bit to get a little more like big pictured, a little bit more inventive, to step out of our passion-fueled hearts and get mentally active on what changes can be made to balance the energies so that we can be constructive with what's available. Be cautious not to drop too far into those sweet pleasures and use them as a further excuse to not do what we need. Venus loves the pleasures, right? And so we might find ourselves wanting to kind of escape through Venus. Venus and Neptune are also very similar in the same way that Mercury and Jupiter are very similar. Where Neptune is kind of the higher octave of Venus. Around 11:30 a.m., the moon stops by Mars, bringing us more pep in our step, more spunk, more courage, more spontaneity. And this energy is giving us the pump we need in tandem with the Leo moon, bringing more passion, directness, and openness. And ending the day is its visit to Chiron. We've had a lot of Chiron this week. We effectively made it through the week, and it only makes sense that it ends with a gentle highlight on the healings we've conducted and the healings we are still in need of. Allow yourself to bask in the healing you've achieved thus far and embrace the golden, warm peace that comes as a byproduct. Gently embrace any additional understandings you may receive in the moment of it all as well. This is not the most dramatic day, fortunately. It's kind of like a nice ending. But, it's a gentle end to the week that offers a lot of deep energy. Whatever energies are surrounding you on this day, be gentle with yourself. Allow yourself to feel it through. Utilize it all constructively according to your person, your needs, and your goals. all in all, I wasn't sure if this was the correct slide or not. What a week. So much energy is available to navigate, so many opportunities to heal, to develop and practice self-awareness, to grow, to realign. If you're affected by the energy, just remember that you get to decide what you do about it. It's just offered energy. It's just opportunity. And if you're not affected by the energy, practice gentleness with those around you who may be exhibiting signs of being affected by the energy. Friendly reminder that if you want the newsletter with links to these episodes or upcoming episodes or workbooks or anything, please resubscribe to my newsletter. It's wildflowersinthesky.com. All episodes are available on YouTube and podcasts, and they're also linked in my blog. Please always feel free to contact me if there's any specific subjects or topics you'd like covered. While I love to do these generalized looks at the stars, my real passion, like I said, is teaching and educating and breaking stereotypes, which is why I started that conspiracy theory series in the first place, and we'll jump back into that, but soon enough. I'll also start to configure a Learning Corner episode that drops every other week or so, or something like that, depending on my ability. So, no promises, because I really, like I said, I'm just trying to make sure I show up. But upcoming videos do include Moon in Taurus, Venus in Aquarius, Moon in Gemini, Full Moon in Cancer, Moon in Leo, and then again, maybe something educational. Thank you so much for being here. It really and truly means the world that you are interested in the information and the wisdom I am just yearning to share with you and others, and hopefully you're able to receive that which I aspire to share. So, yes, thank you so much again, and I hope you have a beautiful new year or a beautiful start to the new year.